Peace, peace, peace and love, family. Peace, instructor. Peace and
Peace.
love.
All right. Can anybody give a quick recap of what we talked about last week?
I can.
Go ahead. You can start us off.
So we spoke of the natural enemies, which I don't know if it's the word is coincides, but with the Four Noble Truths.
We're talking
Which
about
are
last week. That was 2 weeks ago.
no, I just came for the first time last week. So I'm
Last
just
week we did.
recapping. I'm looking at my notes. literally. But maybe I'm talking about the recap, the real.
Yeah, yep.
Maybe I'm talking about the recap. But
Yeah, last week we did the first in the Eightfold Path,
right, I'm still
which was
looking at my
right.
notes from last. Okay, so I'm still looking at my notes from last week. I was going to go into that too, the right view. But okay, so let somebody else recap because I'm recapping what you were recapping last week.
No, recap what we actually talked about, which was right view
The
or
e
right understanding.
right we right understanding.
Mhm.
We talked about ego and no, I'm kind of stuck because I like looking at my notes and I'm like, so we talked about right view and how it's governed by why we do what we do. Correct?
No, that sounds
Um,
more like it.
there we go. Okay. Um, and there's clarity, self self-kindness, humility and patience, perseverance, tranquility, and wisdom. What we spoke of last week.
All right. Can somebody pick up where she left off?
Hey everybody, I'll elaborate a little bit. You mentioned there were two types of action or things that push our action or cause our actions, and we have the surface knowledge, and that's like knowing accordingly, just based on things as we go and things as we grow. And then we have wisdom, which is real, I think you said real deep penetration, when the mind is free of all impurities and fully developed. And so that was one thing. And I think you followed up with accepting that all things are interconnected and part of a whole. So that goes into that more in-depth understanding of not only yourself, but the world around you.
Perfect. Anybody else got anything to add? All right. Well, if nobody has anything to add, Instructor
I
Nate, do you have
remember.
anything? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, peace, instructors, Paul. I wasn't on the call, but I watched the video, and I remember you talking about the purpose of dreams. It stuck out to me. It's to control fear. It was practice, and ultimately the purpose of this particular life is this particular fourth dimensional experience we call life. This existence is to control and master thought, so that when we move out of this particular construct, we will have dominion over thought, which in turn allows us to shape with purpose, juxtaposed to having things just happen around us without any of our quote unquote control. That stood out to me. That was a major key for me.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. Anybody else have anything to add? Instructor Nate or Instructor Cedric, if you guys want to say anything, you can.
Well, that right understanding has a lot to do with the cravings and desires. And without realizing that those cravings and desires are what cause all human suffering, you will never know how to let it go. And if you don't know how to, manage that, you'll never be able to free yourself from your self-ignorance, your pain, your suffering, all of that. So until you understand the nature of cravings and desires, you will never be able to free yourself from your suffering, if you will.
Exactly.
It is, like it says, right understanding and right views. So it's kind of like the philosophy. So to put it real simply, I like to look at it as putting something on the plate, healthy versus unhealthy, to get a context. This is part of the division of wisdom. So we're looking at getting a context here before we get into the finer points of what is the other one, ethical and the mental divisions of the Eightfold Path. It makes sense. So we getting a broad context. So simply, the old saying, you want the clean cup or the dirty cup. So it's context. It's a viewpoint. So I don't know if that landed. That comes across.
It did for me. I'm not sure if it did for everybody else.
Healthy versus unhealthy.
Yeah, that
It's
makes
an
sense.
understanding or a perspective or a view. We're going somewhere with it.
Yeah, that I get it.
Yeah, that's definitely very simply put and makes sense. And what he said, we talked about also the three paths. So the path that we're in now is wisdom. Then the path after is morality, and then the last path is the mental path or the meditative path. So this wisdom path is the underlying foundation of the rest. So this particular path is before action even takes place. So like the next one, the morality path is, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. All of those are based in and around action. And this particular wisdom path undergirds the action. So this drives the action that you take. So that's why we start with this, and then we move into action, and then the last path is the meditative path. So actually, I had wrote that down, so I'm glad you mentioned it. But I was just saying that the wisdom path is the insight or the knowledge as to why the path should be followed. Like this is the why behind things. So that's why we give you these two first, right views and right understanding. And then the second one, which we're going to talk about tonight, is right intention or right thought. And it's also called right resolve. So it can be either of those three, right intention, right resolve, or right thought. And it's actually pretty simple in what the Buddha said, but we are going to expound on it a little bit. And if nobody has anything else, we can get right to it. All right. So the first one or the second one is right intention, right thought, or right resolve, and it's the second and the last one inside of the wisdom path. And in the book, it's called The Middle Discourses, and the title is The Analysis of Truth. It actually gives what the Buddha said about this particular part in the Eightfold Path. So he said, and what, friends, is right intention or right thought? He said, thoughts of letting go, renunciation, of goodwill and harmlessness. This is right intention or right thought. So it's very, very simple, clear cut, straight to the point. It pretty much is just threefold. Renunciation or letting go is one. Two is goodwill. And three is harmlessness. So pretty much if you break down what is right intention or right thought is those three things. And I'll say them again: letting go or renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. And it's about, it's another quote that he said, but he said that happiness and fulfillment come from letting go. So, as we talk, bring it back to the discipline, everything is about shaving off, getting more and more efficient in what we do and doing less and less and being more efficient. And that's what this is about. Happiness and fulfillment come from letting go. And it's about, shaving down and becoming more and more efficient, letting go of any extraneous things that don't serve you. And remember, we talked about last week in right views and right intentions is about asking the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? So this is right in line with that. Like if something doesn't serve you, you won't do it. It doesn't make sense. It's a waste of time. And, this Eightfold Path is also called the middle way. And it keeps you, on a straight and narrow path. It's not, a deviation of left or right, but that middle path right down the middle. And it was actually a story that when a farmer, he met the Buddha, and I'm going to read the story, and this kind of encompasses this particular statement about happiness and fulfillment come from letting go. So one day the Buddha was sitting in the woods with 30 or 40 monks. They had an excellent lunch and they were enjoying the company of each other. There was a farmer passing by, and the farmer was very unhappy. He asked the Buddha and the monks whether they had seen his cows passing by. The Buddha said that they had not seen any cows passing by. The farmer said, "Monks, I'm so unhappy. I have 12 cows and I don't know why they all ran away. I have also a few acres of a sesame seed plantation, and the insects have eaten up everything. I suffer so much, I think I'm going to kill myself." The Buddha said, "My friend, we have not seen any cows passing by here. You might want to look for them in the other direction." So the farmer thanked him and ran away. And the Buddha turned to his monks and he said, "My friends, you are the happiest people in the world. You don't have any cows to lose. If you have too many cows to take care of, you will be very busy. That is why, in order to be happy, you have to learn the art of cow releasing. You release the cows one by one. In the beginning, you thought that those cows were essential to your happiness, and you tried to get more and more cows. But now you realize that the cows are not really conditions for your happiness. They constitute an obstacle for your happiness. That is why you are determined to release your cows." All right, I know it's a lot in that, so anybody has any feedback or what stands out, did it make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Does
That
it mean
absolutely.
you need less?
You got it's for your interpretation. So remember, we prefaced this by saying that this right thought or right intention is about renunciation or letting go. So it's not necessarily that you need less, but we started with the Four Noble Truths, and one of the Four Noble Truths is that suffering is caused by desire. And desire comes in two forms: either I want something or I don't want something, or which we call aversion. So it's like I want to get that thing or I don't want this thing. And the story kind of is saying that the more and more you get, the more and more responsibility that you have to take care of those things, and the more and more you want. So it's like it's a thirst or a desire, which is the second in the Four Noble Truths, which we call Trishna, which is thirst or desire, that can never be quenched. And people think that the more and more stuff they get, the better off they'll be, when in reality it's the opposite. The more and more you let go, the happier you'll be.
Instructor Keith, if I may.
Okay.
There's a mantra that speaks to that, and it goes, the path to true growth is in decrease.
Exactly, yep.
That's solid.
I kind of imagine it as, as life is you're gonna be walking through the desert, and you have time to prepare yourself, and you can be somebody who before the journey you're just constantly guzzling water, or you can be that person who reduces their water intake so they can make it across the desert in a few drops. It's just reducing what you consider your needs and your desires so you can make that journey where you need to be.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we kind of talked. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Instructor Nathan, can you repeat that?
Yes, of course. The path to true growth comes in decrease.
Comes in
the path to true
decrease.
The path to
decrease.
true growth comes in decrease.
Decrease. Pardon me, your mic went out for a second over here. Cool, great. Thank you so much.
It could be me too. I'm
it.
missing up front too. So, yeah, anytime.
All right, thank you. It's beautiful.
That's what we're here for.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to jump in and say it's about just like Instructor Keith just laid out. The point of this, or the big picture, is the Four Noble Truths. To stay, to not suffer. That's the point. So coming all the way back to letting the cows go, it's about, we're talking about right thought or purpose. So what's your goal? What are your goals that you're attaining? So again, we're looking at big picture again. This is the first division of wisdom. We getting a foundation of where we're going here, going into actions. So we're on goals. Where are you going? What's your target? Because suffering, again, Four Noble Truths. Number one is suffering is a fact of life. So this one is about purpose and goals. What are your goals? What are you setting up so you can avoid suffering? I don't even want to not avoid.
Maybe decrease the suffering.
Yeah, exactly. It's a better word. So yeah, I don't know if that landed as well. Just we're looking at intentions or purpose. So keep that in mind for where we're going. Think about those goals. When we talked about the cows again.
Yes, sir.
Can you maybe elaborate on it a little bit?
Sure. So we like to, let me say it this way. I'm going to give a different analogy. Okay. Since Kari, you watching your show now. What's the cartoon you watching? Get that, Kari?
Naruto.
Yeah, you watching Naruto. So you want to watch Naruto, right? However, it's 9:20. You got to get up in the morning. 7 o'clock. You got to get up and get moving. You can't watch Naruto all night. Although. Because you have to get up. Although you want to watch it, it feels good to watch it.
Uh-huh.
So you have to align your watching of Naruto with your goals, with your intentions, with your purpose
Okay.
to decrease suffering. Because if you watch Naruto all night, you're gonna suffer in the morning.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense
Yeah.
to everybody?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes.
Yes.
that's a very
Yes, sir.
basic, simple example.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's a very great example. I hope everybody got that.
Can
I'd
Yes,
I
like
sir.
to add to that a little bit if I can. In the process of letting go, we form all kinds of attachments, and those attachments are what we really need to release and let go of. Because if you don't release that attachment or that you have to whatever it is you're attached to, like say a TV show, or maybe we all get attached to like wanting more. Like we want more money, we want more items, we want more stuff in our life, more people, more pleasure, however you want to look at it. But we always form attachments to it. And if you don't let go of those attachments, you'll never be able to truly let go. And you'll be letting go for the rest of your life without actually having success. So let go of those attachments and you'll find it much easier to let go and actually decrease that suffering.
If
It's
I
like
can,
you want
if I can
something,
jump
get
in.
it, and don't use it.
No, not necessarily, Kari. It's like I know this. I've heard this story of a monk um who walked by a flower in a garden that was very pretty. He enjoyed looking at this flower, and he picked it. Um, and he had it for a while, and then eventually watched it die. And had he left left the flower where it was and not attempted to covet or keep it or hold it and just enjoyed it for what it was and where it was, then he suffered when he watched the flower die because he realized he had made an error. So in that case, what was happening is um, we get things because we think we need these things and we think we want these things, and then when it breaks or when it goes away, when it withers and is no longer useful, then you got junk. It's like having a whole bunch of toys and you got a whole bunch of like what's the thing, the Beyblades. You got a whole bunch of Beyblades, and then pieces of them chip off or whatever. Now none of them are useful. You can't spin any of them, and so you got a bunch of broken pieces, and the suffering that comes from stepping on them and all of that came from the desire to have all of them. You can have a few of them and they serve you, but having all of them for no reason other than I want it, I want it, I want it. You got to keep up with them. That's a bunch of stuff your father tell you got to clean up because I stepped on it. You get in trouble for it. It causes a whole lot of suffering because of all of this stuff that you really didn't need. So I don't know if you've ever heard the saying that less is more. On the floor, when we're on the floor, a whole lot of movement is what gets us beat up. Is when we're very efficient in our movement and very purposeful in what we do that we avoid being struck often. We're present. We can move efficiently. We can see what's happening. We can strike our opponents, and in the confrontation, as opposed to moving around a whole lot and getting beat up. Same thing, carrying a whole lot of stuff, having a whole lot of cows. In this guy's case, he had so much stuff that he had to take care of. He's feeding a bunch of cows. He's cleaning up all their poop. He's got to make sure that they're protected from wolves. Then they all ran away. Now he's got to roam the countryside looking for all of these animals as opposed to just having the one cow. He only needs the one. It's just him, maybe. He only needs that one cow to give him some milk if that's what if he's eating dairy. Maybe, he needs it to help him plow a field or something like that. But having all of those cows, that's a lot of unnecessary responsibility. You can only wear one pair of shoes at a time. You can only drive one car at a time. Costs a lot of money to maintain a bunch of cars, a lot of money to keep up with your shoes. Your feet are going to keep growing. Now you're suffering because your father, like, I just bought you a pair of shoes. Causes you to get in trouble.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So like if you have all this stuff, use it, but once it's like worn out, you can't use it no more and you wasted.
Mm-hmm. That's
All
one
right.
way to look at it.
All right.
Yep. So yeah, sounds like you got a pretty good grasp of it, and those were several examples. Um, so remember, we said the first part of right intention or right thought is renunciation. So renunciation is specifically referring to the abandonment of attachment to sense objects that gratify the senses. So I wish the instructor Aku was here because he's doing a fast, a raw fast.
That's what I've been thinking from the very beginning of this class. I'm like, where is Instructor Aku?
Yeah, busy man. But
Yeah.
yep. So yeah, it's specifically referring to the abandonment of attachment to sense objects, so objects that gratify the senses. And the more you get, the more you desire. So, we always see people, they already have $1 million, but they're like, man, I'm broke. I need to get more money. Like, that's just one of those needs that can never be satisfied. No matter how much you get, you always want more.
Can I
Yeah.
share actually
Go
a
ahead.
story that this all reminds me of? An experience
Go
that
ahead.
I had last year. I had just gotten my license, real estate license last spring. And, I was like, in this office with all these other real estate agents and my broker, and, they're teaching, giving me the ropes about how to sell and everything. And, part of the thing was like, you have to be a shark. You got to be a shark to be a good real estate agent. And so to me, it just kind of was like, a shark. Dang, that's like bloody. That's intense. Like, do I consider myself that animal? I don't know. So, I got frustrated because I felt like, all right, I need to change my attitude. I need to like go like a shark about the money. And I started doing that, and I got my first sale. And it didn't really feel natural, but it was like, well, this is what's working. This is what's happening. This was working in this. This is what they said, And I kept thinking to myself, but I need to tweak this for me, how it works for me. But I was still going on that, that mentality. And so I got my first sale. After I got my first sale, I was like, I wanted my next sale. I was hungry, quote unquote, like a shark. I was like, I tasted blood. I wanted more. And I was I was driving to work, and I was frustrated because I was like, I got to get more, and I need to get another sale. And I was frustrated driving, and I'm driving, and I just went out of my head. I wasn't even there anymore. And because I was so fixated on this idea of getting another sale, that I like came back, and by the time I came back, there was this truck that had this bed on the back of it, and I was going off to the truck. Like my car was like going towards the truck, not straight towards it, but it was in the next lane. And so I came back, and I snapped the wheel, and it broke something, and my car just started whipping on the freeway. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And I had to I had to get out of that lane so I didn't go hit the wall. So I go over, and I went straight into the other wall. It's down on the Southfield Freeway, down there 10 Mile, right before 10 Mile, if you guys know it. And I hit that wall, that huge high wall, and I hit it straight on. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I got out the car, and the thing that was in my head still was like, okay, I'm okay. I mean, something should have been broken. I possibly could have been in a coma, anything, but I was like, okay, I'm okay. But in my head was still like, what am I going to do? Now I don't have a car. I can't get more sales. Like, I was still stuck. And I just like, so I got to my office, came home. The car was totaled. It wasn't coming back. you know, and I was just like, that's it. I'm not going to be, all I could think about was I'm not going to get more sales. And then so I was like, I got to get another car quick. So I rented a car, and then as I'm looking for a car, I couldn't find a car. And so I was so frustrated. I had to stop for a minute because I was like, you know what? You're not being honest with yourself, you know? Like you created all of that. Like you created all of that. You're not even being honest. You're not taking a moment to recognize that you created that and why you created it and how you created that, you know? And so at that time, I just like chilled. I was like, all right, I'm back on the bus and with my bike. And so it took me a little while to get a car again, you know, save up and get a car again and get back to real estate. And I was working my other job. Finally, I know this is a long story. I'm wrapping it up. But then I finally just took a moment and I was just like, all right, you know what? That was all this madness of this need to have more sales. And for what? Like, for what? What you got to ask yourself before you go back to real estate, why are you doing it? Why are you even doing it? Are you doing this for the reason you said? Like, what is your reason? What is your real reason? And how are you going to go back into this? How are you going to approach this? How are you going to live in real estate? So this reminds me of that story, and it gave me that moment of rest to really, you know, observe myself and how I wanted to re-enter and what I wanted to be doing and for what, and not to get lost in that desire and that need and that want and that hungry thing, and not to identify like a shark, just like because everybody else was, to find my way and identify how I identify and for what reason I was doing it. Anyways, I could go on with this story, but that's what this lesson that you all are talking about reminds me of. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, that was actually an excellent story, and we appreciate you sharing. And you kind of brought us to a point of why this is so important, especially this one, which is right thought or right intention, because every action that you take is preceded by a thought. So everything that is in existence right now, every motion that is, you know, had is predicated by a thought, either consciously, subconsciously, or unconsciously, a thought. And having the right thought now guides the actions that you take. And you know, most people just, they aren't in control of their thoughts. That's why meditation is so important. And we always say all roads lead to meditation. And this is part of the foundation of meditation is right thought. What thoughts are you having? So you see how one incorrect thought or one wrong thought led to all of that, you know, whole series and chain of events. So another label for this particular one, the second one in the Eightfold Path, is also called right-mindedness. So just for you, you know, you use the word being out of your mind for one, you know, maybe probably a total of 5 seconds, but look at the damage that it caused. And if you look at the world today, just think how different the world would be if more people practice right-mindedness, and how many people are dead or in jail because they lost their mind for 3 seconds or 5 seconds. And now their whole lives are ruined, families are ruined, everything, because they didn't control themselves and they didn't control their thoughts. And like we said, action is preceded by a thought. So had they controlled their thoughts up front, the actions wouldn't have taken place for them to be in that negative situation. So how many people, you know, have committed violent acts or, you know, robberies or anything like that because they weren't in control of their thoughts and desires. Because remember, this is about the Four Noble Truths as well. So, you know, that thirst, whatever it was, and it's also the Four Natural Enemies too. Did they want more power? Did they want to dominate somebody? They want to avoid being dominated. Was it ego? Did they want to
Mm.
look good? Like all of these things cause people to do erratic and sporadic actions that now make life much harder for them. If only they had controlled their thoughts for 3 to 5 seconds.
Mm.
Keep
Mm.
in mind as well that this is a path. So which direction are you walking on that path? Walking
Mm.
towards suffering, or are you walking towards the end of suffering?
Mm.
Satisfactory. I heard a guy break it down like that before. As opposed to suffering and the end of suffering, satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So you traveling in one of the directions, and based on your, again, this eightfold path, and right now your understanding and or your view and your intentions, which way you're traveling on this path. Because again, going back to the Four Noble Truths, suffering is a fact of life. And anybody let me know in their experience that that's not the case. Let me know now, please. Help me out.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
that's it. That's how I my bad, sorry. Wrong microphone. But that's exactly how I heard it explained as well. It's basically a path, and it's we whatever labels we want to put on it. One path is a good path, and one path is a bad path, so to speak. And his offering of the components of right intention or right thought is, like we said, renunciation, um, goodwill, and harmlessness. So the flip side of that is wanting or desire, ill will, and cruelty. So are you going down, which path are you going down? Are you going down the negative path or the positive path? And, as I always say, but this is why I appreciate, this path so much. Is because none of it is about belief. It's not, oh yeah, here's this thing that you have to believe in and follow. It's like his own, his own foundation was that I don't want to believe in anything. If you had not, if you haven't achieved or attained the enlightenment or whatever it is, I don't want to hear about it from knowledge. I want to
Right.
tell me, what have you done and how did you get there? And that's what this is. He achieved or attained enlightenment, and this is the path that he took to get there. And it's called the middle path. I'm not sure if we, I know we went through it in person, but I'm not sure if we went through it here. But very, very quickly, he was a prince, had everything, money, women, food, all of that, every sense pleasure was fulfilled until he encountered old age, sickness, and death. And he wanted an escape from that. He wanted, because that was suffering. So he went to follow monks or ascetics who practice yoga, starvation, and basically they aren't allowed to make money. So everything they get is through charity. So he followed these people for 7 years and he was with them. And toward the end of his time with them, he was only eating 1 grain of rice per day. And then, he next day he eat another 1 grain of rice. So you can imagine how skinny and all of that he was. So he wrote like, he had lost all of his weight. He was weak. They meditated for a very long time, sitting on like rocks and hard stones and stuff like that. And he thought that he was about to die. Like he was very close to death because like basically he was starving to death. he said his face was sunk in and his, skin was hanging and eyes was sunk in and stuff like that. And basically, he was like, I'm done with this. And he went to go get some rice pudding that somebody offered him, and he ate the rice pudding. And after that, he was like, one extreme is not the answer where he was as a prince. And then the other extreme is not the answer either, because it's all suffering. Like, so the middle path was birth. It's in between the life of an aesthetic and, the sense pleasure life. It's the path down the middle. And, right after he got the pudding, he was like, well, I'm not meditating on rocks and stones and all of that. I'm going to take some hay, put it down, make me a soft spot, sit under this tree and meditate. And once he did that, that's how he became enlightened. And that's what birthed the Eightfold Path. So it was all about experience. It's not believing this and, somebody is coming down from wherever to save you. None of that. It's all, real 3D reality. This is what it is, real life, not anything to believe, not any, fairy tale stuff.
It hit me during during your commentary, is that it's like you mentioned, it's not hardcore dogma. It's more like how they structured the U.S. Like there's a constitution or your intentions or your guidelines or your framework, but it can change. When you see a better way, you change it and you adjust it and you morph it, all the way until you find your way. So don't get caught up in, this is it, this is the law, this is it. No, let's adjust. There is a time to kill. Not don't kill anybody. No, it's a time to kill. It's a time to speak harshly to someone. It's a time to do whatever. And it's a time to do the opposite. It's time to love someone too. So so that's perfect. I love that middle way.
Instructor, this with Veggie backing on what you're saying, this speaks less to balance and more to harmony. That balance, like y'all touched on with us this past weekend, is really a lot of inactivity, where there's no motion. And GMK, Grandmaster Kajana, tells us that motion is everything. Movement is everything, and that balance is the scales not moving at all. Whereas being harmonious with one's environment, like what you're talking about, there is a time for things, and your response is congruent with it and in harmony with it. There is a time for violence, and often, I sat with our brother L today and had lunch, and I just was reflecting on how he was having adverse thoughts to violence, when we were talking about the notion of violence. And like you said that day, violence is necessary. Really, what differentiates any act is the intention behind it. From what I'm learning from y'all, operating out of love juxtaposed to fear. That same action could look different from a different practitioner. If I'm exchanging with you out of fear, my movement could be, I could deliver the same thrust punch that y'all instruct us on, but it's going to look and feel different than yours, when you're operating out of love. And so that speaks to, like, a little bit, speaking to that, the middle way, not necessarily being balanced, but being harmony.
Yeah. Oh yeah. To jump ahead a little bit, I don't want to ruin it, but the Buddha talked about later, one of the Eightfold Path is right livelihood. And he didn't say that a warrior is a wrong livelihood. He mentioned things like are that to dissuade you from doing certain things for your livelihood, but that wasn't one of them. So I thought that was very interesting.
That is interesting.
Now, also something you brought up you brought to mind for me is the principle of polarity in this. It kept coming up, like when you're looking at pleasure, at the opposite end of that spectrum is suffering. So again, that's the middle way. When you're looking at renunciation, on the opposite end of that is I don't know what you want to call it, greed.
Right.
Yep, gluttony. Yep.
Gluttony, yep.
Yeah.
Goodwill, ill will, harmlessness, or causing harm. So that middle way is polarity in all those. So, like, to your point, harmony. These are whole concepts. These are whole things, and we're looking at the two extremes: suffering into suffering. So again, the middle way. So that's beautiful.
Exactly. Everybody else quiet. Do y'all have anything? Y'all following the conversation? Everything making sense? You have any questions?
Yeah, it's clear to me. Yeah, I'm just absorbing it all in and digesting it. This is some good stuff. So,
Brother Bird, what up, though?
What's up, Paul? How you doing, man?
I feel good, bro, man. We were supposed to catch up. I gotta call you, man.
Oh yeah, hit me up anytime. I'll drop whatever I'm
Yes,
doing.
sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, y'all. I just had to say that.
So I want some people to jump in and give some feedback. I don't know where you're going, Keith. I don't want to take you off track or not. I don't know if you had an agenda.
No, necessarily, but let me just say this one last thing, and then we can just give feedback. This would be the end of it. So this is the last point, and it actually speaks directly to what you said earlier. But right intention or right thought is asking the question: are you prepared for the task at hand, whatever that task might be? What are your preparations of thought, speech, and motivation? Is the task at hand worthy of your time and effort? Rightness in resolve or intention or thought means two things. First, is the activity worthy of your effort? Does it contribute to bettering life for fellow creatures, which is harmlessness and goodwill, like we said, or even one? Other, does it move you toward enlightenment when you're doing whatever you're doing? If the answer is yes, then next, if you are the person to make a contribution towards achieving that goal, your motivation must be unselfish, with no thought of fame or reward, which is renunciation. You must have the knowledge or special skill needed to make your contribution. Only when you can merge these two factors harmoniously do you have
Instructor,
right intention. Yep.
sorry, you're like really, really muffled when you were talking about renunciation. So I'm not sure if that's just me, but it was like really muffled, so it's hard to hear.
Now, I was going to ask you to can you read that again? I thought that was actually pretty sweet. Are you prepared for the task at hand? Can you read that again? I was writing a lot of that down.
Perfect. Yep. So right resolve, right intention, or right thought. You ask the question, are you prepared for the task at hand? What are your preparations of thought, speech, and motivation? Is the task at hand worthy of your time and effort? First, is the activity worthy of your effort? Does it contribute to the bettering life for any fellow creatures, which equates to harmlessness and goodwill, or even one other being moved towards enlightenment? So basically, is whatever you're doing contributing to humanity in some way or helping somebody else move towards enlightenment? If the answer is yes, then next ask if you are the person to make the contribution towards achieving that goal. Your motivation must be unselfish, with no thought of fame or reward, i.e., renunciation. You must have the knowledge or special skill needed to make your contribution. So that goes back to asking the question, are you the person to make the contribution? Only when you can merge these two factors harmoniously do you have right resolve. And it goes right back to the three things that we said: renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. So your action or thought is predicated on those three things, then it falls under right intention. If not, then it's off the path. It's either to the right or to the left, but it's not the middle way.
The middle way seemed narrow in the mud.
It's like you said, it adjusts. It's not a hard line.
True. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. That was all I had. So now we can take comments.
That was a
feedback,
mic dropper
questions.
right there.
Right.
All right, now it's on y'all. I'm gonna be quiet.
No, I'm bugging off of how us consistently checking for ego in that process is key in order to really determine and differentiate between the purpose behind our actions. That's like, you you really got to, like, when I was practicing Islam, I remember this hadith about Prophet Muhammad being at war, and when they were at war, people were dying. That's what happens in wars. He had killed some folks, and he knocked the guy down. My man's sword fell, and he was on the ground, and Muhammad was standing over him with his sword back to slay him, and the man spat on him. And so the prophet put his sword down and helped him up, because he wasn't sure if he was killing them. In the Arabic term is feasibilillah, for the pleasure of God, because it was God's will, or was he killing them because his ego was involved? He ain't know if it was like, oh, bitch, you done spat on me, and he had to check himself, and it just kind of, that's an extreme story, but it really brings into mind for me just how aware and present we need to be in our actions to determine what is driving us. Like what you just said, if it's not meeting those criteria, then it's really not a true deed, a selfless deed. We got some ulterior motive. You got that presence, and that mindfulness is really, really key at all times. Checking ego. Is this based out of love? Is this ego? Is this for me? Is this to be seen in the eyes of men and women? Is this to be, lauded and clamored after? That's is ill, but at the same time, is also the middle way, is also being able to receive praise and adoration, thanks, love. That's a heavy. That's a
right. It's exactly what you said. It's harmony. It's the two. It's not too much of one. It's not too much of the other one. It's the middle.
I just got a question. Who determines if you're being harmonious? Like, how can you say yourself, like, oh yeah, I have the right intentions, I'm renouncing, I'm harmless, I'm doing goodwill. How do you break yourself down to understand that you might actually not be doing all those things, although you think you are?
So, I don't know if you had anything different, but I was just going to say your intention. Like, that's what it's about. Like, for example, like, it's a group of Buddhists that are called, they practice a sect of Buddhism called Jainism. And so they take this harmlessness and right livelihood to the extreme. They walk around with like a duster in front of them so they don't kill any bugs, and they walk around with masks on so no bugs will fly in their mouth and die. They eat a very, very strict vegan diet because they don't want to harm any animals or living things. They don't even walk on the grass. They walk, they'll walk around if they need to, but they don't walk on the grass. And, to me, that's to the right or to the left. It's not the middle way, because if you mistakenly step on a bug, like, that's not wrong intention or being harmful, because it was a mistake. Your intentions weren't bad. And I think that's a part of this whole thing is the intention of harmlessness, the intention of goodwill, and the intention of letting go. So as long as those criteria are met, then the actions that you take, as long as it's predicated or founded on those things, is right. So from me looking at you, it might look wrong, or I might judge or say that it's not right. But as long as you know that your intentions were good, then that's what governs if it was right or not.
And I was just going to say, it is a path. So on that path, you will grow, you will change, your thoughts, your views, your understandings will change over time. They'll develop. So what's right today is not right 5 years from now. So again, the what Instructor Keith said was perfect. So your intentions will develop over that time as well. So you just got to put the work in.
I was going to say diet is the perfect example, because, a lot of people start off eating whatever standard American diet. Then they cut out beef and pork. Then they cut out chicken and turkey, and now it's just fish. Then they cut out fish and they become vegetarian. Then you cut out eggs, you cut out cheese, and then you become vegan. So it's like you're on a path, and each time your intentions were good. You were eating healthy. But at the same time, was it the healthiest that it could possibly be? No. But again, it morphs and changes, just like you said. You're on the path. So you're going somewhere. So on the path, it's letting go. It's renunciation.
Soon I'm about to be eating that 1 grain of rice a day.
The middle way.
A big grain, though. It's going to be like a burrito size.
Right.
That's the GMO rice.
Right.
right. That Monsanto. That good Monsanto.
Who next to weigh in?
So what I got in from it is, long as you have the right mind, the right thoughts, it'll lead you down the right path.
I would say just don't be attached to any outcome, and nothing is guaranteed. So it could or it couldn't, but as long as you have the right thought, that's what makes the difference.
And who is that, by the way? No name popped up for me.
This is Brittany.
Oh, hey, Brittany. Okay.
Hey, Instructor said, how are you?
Doing well. Okay. You incognito today.
I got on a little late.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah, we're going to post the recording so I can send it to you.
Some of the thoughts that just popped into my head during these conversations is, when you're talking about the right mind, the process, that first process about controlling the thoughts. I think, suffering and attachment, one of the things that a lot of people hold on to is all these voices that get into their head. We hear voices, whether it's our own or somebody else's voices, and a lot of us don't want to detach from those voices. And all these things, to me, kind of boils down to like sound. You know, we're all sound anyway, and so we have all this noise in our ear that we cannot hear the true calling. We hear all these different callings from other people's egos and selfish desires, but we don't hear our true calling because we got too many voices in the head. So part of detachment to me is, it personally is quieting those voices, whether it's doubt, fear, anxiety, ego, so I can, I can hear the ultimate voice, the truest voice out there, and you let that guide my journey. And I kind of look at it. I don't know exactly where I'm gonna end up. I don't, I just know I have a direction I'm going based on what I hear from a higher source. And as a brother stated, how do you kind of know? I view it as listening to my surroundings, really being in tune, being able to, just like in combat communication, how do you know when, somebody is in striking range? Well, you really don't know. It's a feeling, and you can just tell by, if you listen to your environment, if you're moving right, if you're not moving right. It's going to let you know eventually in some way.
I would just offer one addendum, and that it's very difficult to control or silence those voices. And so I would just say we acknowledge them, as we say, in the program that we're in. We thank it for sharing and move on, but we don't give it credence or credibility, and we don't allow that to be our guide, but we just acknowledge it, for what it is. It's a voice, it tells you whatever. Most of it doesn't serve you what it tells you. So, yeah, we hear you, but we gonna stick on the path, because that voice is gonna tell you you're hungry. It's gonna tell you to eat another piece of cake, even though you don't want it. It's gonna tell you to, do whatever, and you can either choose to follow that and listen to it, or thank it and keep it moving. We hear it, but you don't have to follow it.
I understand. Yep. Thank you.
Somebody else?
Hey
Yep.
everybody, Chanel and Terry talking. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay, so listening to everything, one of the things from the beginning that jumped out to me was living the life of a minimalist. Lessening, I guess, the suffering when it comes to materialistic things and such. And then with right intentions, thoughts, made me think about myself and what I do for a living. Like I take on clients and everything like that, and my intention is to help or assist them when they don't feel well. So that's what I got from it. Just being on the right path was my intentions and my line of work with my career and everything like that. And that's it. That's all I got right now.
Okay, good stuff.
I was just gonna speak on. I love how a lot of what we're learning is principle based. Like it's things that can be carried across various aspects of life, whether it's in combat or dealing with your relationships, your family, communication, regardless of whatever religious background or lack thereof. A lot of these principles are things that are taught across various cultures, across various religions. So it shows that it's a basic way. It's the way. That middle path, I think it was Paul that said it, it's narrow, but it's so clear when you think about it. When you eliminate the attachment to desire and eliminate that self-suffering and the self-sabotage that we put ourselves through, and really gaining that harmony through the different principles that we learn, and having that right intention. You don't really worry about, whether you're doing things right, because you know what your truth is within. So that's kind of what I took from that.
Sweet, thank you.
Thank you.
DJ?
I didn't know exactly. Okay, y'all can hear me.
Yep.
Oh, okay. What I got from it is kind of like when I first learned the Eightfold Path, like just learning it and taking it in, it seemed in increments, but like tonight's lesson really drove home like the integration of it all and how it all works together at the same time. And for me, that kind of clicked when we were talking about like there's a time for violence, like there's a time for everything type thing, and in the moment where there's this right time for violence, in that moment, it's not really considered violence so much as just balancing, like you guys brought up before, like it's all about harmony. And it kind of brought to mind for me, like, when it's that time for violence and it doesn't feel like violence, or that connotation that comes along with violence doesn't come along with it when you're balancing, because you're present in the moment. So you're in right meditation, you have right mindfulness, and you're not operating out of fear, you're not operating out of the past, because you're present in the moment. Prior to the occasion, you do whatever the moment calls for. So there's no good or bad attached to that. There's no left or right pulling you either way with that, because you're literally in the moment just responding and giving whatever response is called for at the same time. And all along the Eightfold Path, you see all of those things working together. So that's why you see it show up in like the right livelihood and things of that nature. So for me, tonight kind of clicked the integration of everything and the importance of being in the moment and being mindful and not living in the past or not living in the future, not worrying about what if, because those tend to be the things that make us operate out of anything other than the present moment and anything out of love, which causes disharmony, which at that point we're not acting in balance, we're acting in something different. But at the point that we're acting in balance, there's no negativity or there's no wrong attached to it. It just is.
Mic drop right there.
That was brilliantly said. Thank you.
Thank you.
She ran it down.
Somebody else?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot from tonight, just how it tie into a lot of the stuff y'all be saying. Like I can relate all the way back to when you told us to take the morality out of our mistakes. Like it's just all about relating your actions to being real with yourself. And through these practices and through what we learning, not only are you becoming real with yourself, but you feel me, through becoming real with yourself, it make it easier for you to become to trust your actions and not just dabble like, man, I wonder like why I did this, or you feel me, second guessing yourself. It's getting rid of that, a lot of that second guessing. So yeah, I say a lot of this is just really getting to know yourself and applying principles to do that. So that's what's up.
Yeah, excellent. Somebody else?
And like you were talking about when you were talking about Buddha and how, he wanted to not believe in anything, and how, there's principles and ideologies, and the principles that you all are teaching us, the principles that Master Kajana are teaching us, Grandmaster Kajana are teaching us, this is just based on the reality of our nature, the universe's nature. And so once you move with these principles, it's one thing to, think principles, but it has to be, the holy trinity of a word, which is thought, speech, and action. And when you start to see how, not that you're in control of the environment, but how all your interactions, all your experiences fall in line with these principles, it just eliminates a lot of confusion. and you're not caught with your head bobbing. You know, like the first time when you do multiples where your head's all over the place. You just sitting there. You don't need to look at nothing. You just know what's the right move, what's the right direction, and it just makes life so much simpler in a way. So I just thank you for sharing these principles, all of you, and just helping to ease a lot of confusion that existed in my mind. I'm sure other people's minds.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. And that's the thing, like it's so parallel to the art, but just like you said with multiples, or like I like to think about grabs just because it's a little bit easier to see in action. But before you came to the discipline, if somebody choked you, you would think like, man, what do I do? Like, and it would be kind of overwhelming. But when you get the principle of relax, take inventory, and strike, which is principle, it now becomes easy. So these are the principles to living life. And now when you get these principles, life becomes easy. It's not, all convoluted like people think, or like even like you said, with multiple attacks. Like before, you would think like all of these people are attacking me. What do I do? All of these blows are coming from everywhere. But then when you get the principles of multiple, and you see it's just a series of one blows and one person at a time. It's not all of these people. So all we're doing is skewing your vision to now see life for what it really is. And that's all enlightenment is. It's just seeing things for what they are.
Amen.
Right. We got to pass that plate.
Right. Again, keep in mind, it's the middle way. The middle way. So we're not necessarily eating that grain of rice every day. It's the middle way. What's the middle way? And we're not gorging and just eating everything. It's a harmony. It's a balance. It's a middle way. So I guess I'm speaking to Lovely when she mentioned letting go of all the material things and being a minimalist. What's your middle way? If that's it, great. But what's your middle way? You have to be.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it kind of makes me think of Erykah Badu's song "Bag Lady."
Absolutely. Yeah. It's letting go. It's renunciation. Letting go. It's the stick practice.
When that like to add to that, just going back to what instructor Keith was just saying about when you let go, it's actually, the middle way is a lot easier than it seems, because and it just made me think of like, as I actively apply it to my life, it's funny because it like as I'm here in this class and I hear it, I'm like, wow, all of this stuff, everything makes sense. It just makes sense immediately. It's not like, oh, what? It's not a hard concept to grasp. It's actually, it's like, oh, that makes sense. Of course. However, what I'm hearing and what I'm, also experiencing is what we experience as we are, being offered this understanding, is that it's not grasping it that's hard. It's letting go that's actually the hard part of this entire lesson. It's the hardest part. It's the part of letting go, because in order to grasp this concept completely and to apply it to your life, you have to empty your cup of everything you've had in it up till now. And that's the part that is in, I believe, the human mind of like all of these things I've accumulated to now. And if I let go of this, what does that mean? I remember coming to a point where I was like, I thought this was like 10 years ago, and I was seeing that happen in my life. And I thought, I had this thought literally of like, oh, well, what is my personality going to be like? Who am I going, am I not going to be who I am? Will people think that, you know, it was so like, and it was just like, no, not at all. You're always going to be who you are. But maybe those things that are quote unquote your personality aren't really you anyway. They're just a personality, you know, not a real reality, you know. So that's what this brings up for me.
You touched on something deep. So I'm not sure if I talked to you guys about it. I know I talked to the virtual class about it, but for people who I haven't talked to, the word personality, the root word of that is persona. Does anybody know what persona means, the root word?
Is it like an act that you on, or a certain way that you portray yourself?
Anybody else? Or do y'all agree with that?
Like a character.
Yes.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. It's a mask. It's a mask that people wear in a stage play. So when you say your personality, persona, person, is all just a mask and a costume and an act.
Yeah.
You
So
typecast yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's exactly what I came to in that moment was like your personality. Like, what is your personality? And I had to pick that word apart. I didn't know until right now what the root word was, but I had to pick it apart. And I'm like, personality. Like, I wasn't born with a personality, you know, like I picked that up from little bitty things and I put it all together. And at that time, it's interesting that you say it as a mask, because at that time I felt like I was removing a mask that I had created throughout my life. So
The beautiful part is you still get to choose. When you were going through your commentary, that's what I wrote down on my paper here. I'm like, Kuji Chagalia. You get to choose. Self-determination. You get to choose. What is your life going to look like? Who do you want to be? That's what we're talking about, right understanding, right intention or purpose. You get to choose. And then that's your measuring stick. So to Javion, he's like, how do you know? That's your measuring stick. You get to choose what that measuring stick is. Say, hey, my actions are this. This is my intentions I set. Does it measure up? And how do I measure up? What action do I need to take now to make sure I measure up?
yes,
So
sir.
that's power. You get to choose.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and to piggyback off that, basically
we don't do no pigs.
Yeah, you
got me. Veggie back.
Veggie knapsack.
Yeah, the veggie back then. It's not even just letting go of material things, but also your experiences too, because like you said, like our personality is just almost like a reaction of our old experiences. And I had a realization in that when I was in the hospital and I was talking with my mom a lot. I just got a lot of chance to talk with her. I was telling her all these instances about how I felt about different type of teachers back in middle school, like different instances I was just having when I was young. And she like, bro, you got a lot of, you feel me, deep feelings about old stuff that you just need to figure out. I'm like, man, like that's true. So you feel me, just letting go of not much material things, but even our past experiences, man. I feel like that it's just refreshing, almost like a weight off your shoulders, for real.
Yep, letting go or renunciation. See how it's all in there. It's hitting everybody differently at different times, but it's all leading back to the
Because everyone is
renunciation.
at different places. So it's going to hit you where you are. That's great.
Facts. Facts.
Rada, Kim, anybody else got anything? Mike? Ben?
You got something?
Oh, Ben?
No. Kaya. Heard her say
Oh,
something.
right. Right. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything, I'm good. I'm not sure if any instructors have anything else to add.
Not at all.
There are a couple things I'd like to say before we leave. When you all were talking, there was a lot that was going through me, but this right intention, this right thought, this right mindfulness gives you a purpose, that right purpose. And you must want release from your sickness and commit yourself to discovering self-knowledge. Without purpose, you will not want to do what you must to find that inner peace. And this path is taking you towards your true self. And that true self is that spiritual being, that person inside of you that we always talk about. And it was Buddha that said that you are not a body, you have a body, you are a spirit. And once you realize that, then you can actually allow yourself to unfold, the discipline will unfold, and everybody has a different purpose in life. And that's why we're all in different places at different times. And that'll allow you to fulfill that purpose in a way that is not just fulfilling it, but it will be powerful, and others will take notice, and they will actually want to know what it is that you're doing. And Instructor Keith actually brought up about how people snap, and a lot of people end up in prison. Like, I honestly used to snap all the time, and I used to be a person that everybody was trying to get away from. But this Eightfold Noble Path is actually a path of healing. So if there's anything that you're broken or really hurting from, this path will be the key to your self-healing.
Excellent.
That
Yeah,
is,
thank you for that.
that's mic drop. Good stuff, Nate. Boy.
Thank you, Instructor Cedric. And I have to admit, it's really good to see you here, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to see you as well.
Yeah, I'm glad to see everybody. At our peak, we had 18, so it was good. First couple calls we had, it was about 2 people on here. So to see this many people on here.
The first one, there was 5 of us.
Okay, 5.
That is including you and Instructor Nate.
Exactly. So yeah, it's good to see so many people here, and I appreciate it. Let's keep growing. Tell a color belt friend to.
And color belts, we do also have another class on Thursday nights as well.
Yep, and who teaches those?
Instructor Robert and Instructor Allen.
Perfect. Yeah, Instructor Robert made black with me, so definitely a great teacher. And Instructor Nate is one of our, not Instructor Nate, but Instructor Allen is one of our newer black belts. Also very well versed, very competent. So if you are available Thursday, same time, same link. But with that being
those
said,
conversations. I'm sorry. Just about the Thursday, real quick. Those conversations are more centered on how everybody is seeing the discipline play out in their lives day to day. So, when people join and we get testimony, it just empowers us all.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you for that.
Bird, could you say that one more time, brother? What's the Thursday classes do?
Yeah, so the Thursday classes are more centered around the mantras and how the discipline is playing out in our life day to day, and in this environment. And so, the stories we're hearing are just empowering. They're deep, and they just, they all show the effectiveness of what we're doing and how we're training and how we see the universe. So it's just good. The more people, the better, of course. And the testimonies are wanted to be heard by everybody. So if you got time, hop on this Thursday,
Thank you, brother.
7 Mountain Time.
Will you do me a favor and link me down when on, like sometime Thursday?
Yeah, I'll hit you up. I'll send out a reminder.
Thank you, brother.
No problem.
Peace.
Yeah, you all invited. Everybody on this call is invited to that call as well.
And you said it's the same link, so we just go through the same link we went through this evening.
Same link. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you, instructors.
Yeah, no problem. All right, if nobody else has anything, we can go on and enjoy the rest of our night. Get ready for tomorrow.
Peace and love, y'all.
Peace.
Thank you, instructors.
Peace.
Peace and love, family. Peace, family.
Safety, peace, and light be with you all. It's always good to see you all.
You as well, instructor Nathan.
Night, everyone.
Night.